More stuff has arrived. In fact, some of it probably arrived months ago, so time to keep chipping away at the pile. Starting with electrical equipment and supplies. It seems like a lot of loose little parts, but it could be anything. It could be knobs for a slider pot. It could be... Actually, I think that's what it is. Oh yeah. It is slider pot knobs. I could just sort of feel that contour and I recognized it in the bag. So I've been ordering various potentiometer knobs, including now slider pots, because I've been accumulating more things, but in particular, I need something for these slider pots. So, do these fit? I'm not sure if this is a standard thing, including the width from pot to pot. So these have basically a tab to go into, and these have a slot. So I'm not sure if it perfectly fits, like it feels a little bit rickety, but I'm not sure. I've never really dealt with putting knobs on slider pots, so it fits otherwise. If I really wanted to make this permanent, I could dab some hot glue in there and stick it in there that way. But how about the width? And I think I've ordered some more slider pot knobs as well, so I can compare. So if I have two of these side by side, they fit. But yeah, they're a bit rickety. Maybe they're too big. Yeah, they're hooking on each other. So for side to side, it's not really going to be a perfect fit on this application. They're driving each other. But standalone slider pots maybe. And I'll see what the other ones I've ordered fit like on here. I think they're a lot slimmer. So I notice these that I just bought are kind of similar, but even still a bit bigger than the one that came on this slider pot. I tried pulling this yellow one off. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I need to get pliers to hold on to this and then pull it. Or maybe they glued it on, I'm not sure. But I couldn't easily remove it to try testing this. But looking down at it, you can't really probably see it. But this notch opening here is still way wider than what the yellow knob has. And there are these two tiny looking tabs here. I don't know if those are meant to just accept something as big as this opening, and then those tabs help keep it pressed in a bit. It seems like that yellow knob only has the opening between those two little notches. We might end up in a Cinderella search trying to find the slider pot that fits those knobs. Here's the slider pot knobs, 10 pieces for $1.56. So they come in all kinds of colors, but I chose the black. And it's from Passionate Life Shine. And they do give a lot of specs here. They say the push fit size is approximately 8 millimeters by 1 millimeter, so I assume that's the big opening where the potentiometer shaft will go through. So when I'm looking for potentiometers that this will fit, I can use that spec as a guideline. Either way, it's something I bought on a whim. It's a relatively low cost. So if I don't already have something that it will fit, I will find something to fit it. And we can move on to diodes quantity 4. Now, I don't remember offhand. Okay, I don't know about diode unless that's an optocoupler. I still don't think so. And something else. Well, these diodes came with paperwork saying they were a 74HC4045 chip. That looks more like what's in those tubes. So I'm trying to look at these magnified through the plastic tube because it's all taped over on the ends. I could swear that looks like 74HC4046, not 5, but I can also stare at it long enough like an optical illusion. Okay, it's going out of focus as well. And it does kind of look like a 5, so maybe we need to cut these loose and get a better look. Yeah, 74HC4046. And now, in true optical illusion fashion, I'm staring back at this packing slip and I'm thinking, was that an HC 4045 after all? Maybe that was a 6. I think we need to look at the listing and get to the bottom of this. This was, after all, a 74HC 4046, quantity 4. These are from Chips Gate and US $5.20. This one, I could probably do a lot better on the price if I were buying something in quantity and save on shipping locally or online sort of thing, but given the fact that this was a quick purchase, I just wanted to get these in, paying this much for just 4 chips, it's a little bit overpaying, but I didn't have to worry about shipping cost and minimum order quantities, so I kind of just went with it. It's not the best I could do, but it made sense at the time just to get these in. And of course, the listing itself doesn't have much to say about it. It's a chip. You should know what you're ordering if you're ordering it. So going over to one possible datasheet from TI, even though this is not a TI logo, this datasheet really essentially says that these are devices pin compatible with the regular 4046 of the 4000 series. And they give you the operating specs and some general application suggestions of what this is used for, but there really wasn't much in here about practical use, at least at a quick glance, so I just went to the 4046 datasheet directly. I was interested in the frequency synthesizer, so here's an application example circuit using the 4046 and some external circuitry, and eventually, once you get this circuit built up, you can put in a reference frequency, say 1 kilohertz, and you can get an output frequency that is n times the 1 kilohertz reference frequency. In this example, n is set by these switches here. You got ones, tens, and hundreds, so you can change n between 3 and 999 times your fundamental frequency, we'll call it, reference frequency. So this can take a 1 kilohertz and go up to 999 kilohertz, almost 1 megahertz, in intervals of 1 kilohertz. So I should be able to go 3 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz, etc. up to 999 kilohertz. Since I've been doing a lot of clock dividing with those 555 sub-octave tone generators, and you can take a maximum frequency that you have available and then divide it right down to something below 1 hertz, why not take a 1 kilohertz signal and scale it up to almost a megahertz and experiment with that. So I'll set those aside, and I have found a very dusty, I don't know if I showed this before, bunch of conductive foam from long ago, decades ago, with a bunch of chips I had. So I'll just throw this one in the pile, which is to be sorted out, and these I'll keep in the tube. So let's move this stuff aside and open up capacitor quantity 1. It's wrapped in foam, whatever it is. Ah, it is a bunch of surface mount capacitor assortment kit parts. And they appear to be all labeled on the strips. So what is that, about 10 pieces? I'm not sure what size this is. It's probably, well, I don't know. I don't suppose it could be 0402. It looks a bit big. Maybe it's 0603. 0805. I didn't think it was going to be that big. And they give all these values here on a reference chart too, so I like that. Let me take this chart out and see if it unfolds. I wonder if everything that is supposed to be here is actually in the kit. Sometimes they put a disclaimer on the listing saying something like, essentially in translating it, due to human error and the fact that this is such a tedious process, you might end up with some missing or duplicates of one and none of the other, and please bear with us. So yeah, I accept that. Okay, so this list is 2 columns. So it looks like we have 50 volt parts and some 16 and 25 volt parts as the values get bigger. We start at 1 pico, and it looks like we have a bunch of standard increment values. Then we get up to 1 nano. Oh, and they give the numbers, like 1 nano is 102. Even though, well, are there markings on these? I don't think so, but that's a handy reference anyway for other through-hole parts. And then we get up to toward 100 nano, and then we start skipping values, 220, 330 nano, 470 nano. Then we go to 1 micro, 2.2 micro, and 10 micro. So I can see why I wanted this kit. In fact, I might order more. So yeah, it says at the top 57 values from 1 pico to 10 micro. And I think I got 0805 because they're reasonable size to work with. So whether they've given me all the proper parts or not, it looks like they at least wrote on it what it is. So I look forward to having this on hand the day that I need a surface mount part and I can't find one, and I remember, oh, I ordered a convenient kit. There's a couple of items that the price has changed. So this is the same person, Grace Light LED, I think is how you would say this, that I bought this capacitor kit from. 57 values, 0805, total 570 pieces between 1 pico and 22 micro. The Canadian price on this is $10.22 right now. I bought it closer to the beginning of this year and it was only $5 and something Canadian, so I don't know what happened. Has a price change occurred in general in the industry? I didn't see really any kits like this that are $5 or so. They were all like this. So I don't know if something happened. I was wondering why they said 22 micro though as the highest part, because it didn't sound familiar, and sure enough in this list it only goes to 10 micro, which I think is what I got. But here's all the part values anyway. I just cringe whenever I see Wi-Fi V. Like, I don't even know, maybe I could research this. Why would you need a Wi-Fi V? Like, where is it that all this tolerance in capacitance is okay, but there's other properties, you know, that you count on more? Maybe they're better at something else, but not at being accurate to their value. 10 micro could go up to 80%. I think, well, here's another Wi-Fi V that's plus or minus 20, if this is accurate. I could have sworn, though, when I experienced working with Wi-Fi V parts about 10 years ago, I think it was like minus 80% tolerance. And that's where I ran into problems. I needed a certain value capacitance to do some filtering on a power line coming in, and it was not doing its job. And when we switched it out for something more like an X7R, it worked perfectly fine. So ever since then, it's kind of been no Wi-Fi V. So maybe that's a good topic to look into later. What are these things good for? Or why are they so bad with their tolerance rating? Power adapter. No idea. So that's half of the fun. What did I order? Okay, a power adapter is apparently another way of saying no clean flux. So it did not leak. Some people have had issues with these leaking and drying out. So this would be your standard Flux Pen number 951. No clean flux. You depress the tip to start the flow when you push down on the circuit board. Has a shelf life of 1 year at room temperature, and it's made in USA of US and foreign materials. Kester, Flux Pen, 10 milliliters. So it was manufactured at the end of last year, so I guess we are halfway through the shelf life, but I don't really know what the shelf life would pertain to. I'm sure it's going to still work, maybe just not as well or something. So there it is. And if you have a circuit board you're going to work on, you want flux on the pins. You push down the tip to get it flowing and in focus, and you get some liquid flux out to work with. Now, I don't know if it's just me because I'm holding it this way up in the air. It doesn't feel like depressing the tip gets it flowing as much as other flux pens I've used that I've maybe gotten on DigiKey. But, well, there is something happening here, so maybe I'll check this out in more detail later, but at least now I have something. 10 milliliters of flux in a pen style, $1.98 from X-Traps. This is the typical 951 rosin flux. But I don't know if I am misunderstanding something here. It says rosin flux, but down in the description, halogen-free non-rosin organic flux pen. What does that mean? I'm not too familiar with the composition of different kinds of flux, but I guess this would beg some research. And what is Model 951? Is that something that is just a general number, or does it indicate certain materials are or are not part of the product? I don't know. And they are saying there's really no residues that interfere, so it's non-conductive flux. It improves soldering, which is why we would get it. So yeah, I'm confused about this non-rosin. If anyone happens to know what this means in context of rosin flux, leave a comment. In the meantime, I guess if I can remember, I'll look it up later. Here's something I know I ordered a long time ago, either late last year or early this year. It's a PC VGA to S-Video TV adapter. I don't know what to expect of this in terms of quality and functionality. I think I got this toward January, back when I bought my first 56K modem and I was getting toward wanting to work with old PCs. And I thought, I don't really have an old monitor and I don't have a spare monitor, so what if I could actually use an adapter and actually also hook it up to one of those USB PVRs with one of these kind of old-fashioned input videos, and I could record the screen on an old computer. But when I was doing research, I also looked on Amazon, and any reviews for things like this, they all kind of said, well, maybe it kind of worked to start with, and then the buttons didn't respond after a while or something like that. So I thought, I'll try it. So it looks like we have a standard VGA male-to-male, so you can plug into the output of the video card and into the box. This looks like some kind of USB to power adapter. And then an S-video cable, maybe? And what is this, composite or composite? Video cable. So, what does the unit look like? It's very small. And so it has a VGA in that would come from the video card on this cable, I guess. So I would think this would be intended to be a pass-through of the input, so you can still see what you're doing on a regular monitor, but then maybe you can also record out on S-video or this regular composite, I will call it, video. Video converter, VGA to video plus plus. And what's this, a speaker? Maybe if nothing else, if this ends up not working or failing, maybe I can get some parts out of it. Oh, it passed quality control. I guess that's the power input. Okay, so there's some control buttons, menu, zoom, up, down, left, right. This is the kind of functionality that people were saying in general on these units stopped working or responding. Maybe it was stuck in a video resolution and they couldn't bring up a menu anymore, or it was stuck in one video mode and you couldn't switch it. So I'll have to see. I'll be curious to see what happens, but I was willing to take the gamble on it, because if it does work, I will certainly have a use for it as I bring more old computers online and need a way to look at the screen. This is another item where this is the place I got it earlier in the year, maybe January, from Lots Goods 88. But this Canadian price of $16.38 today, my original listing is gone, but I paid 11 something Canadian for this. So it's PC laptop VGA to RCA composite S-video TV video converter box adapter. In other words, you can plug in VGA on the side here, maybe get a pass-through VGA out, I'm not sure yet, but you get a composite video and an S-video out. I'm not sure if those can be simultaneous or if you have to switch between them. So theoretically, you could either use this to run an old computer on something like a television or other kind of monitor, not VGA, or you can plug it into one of those USB PVR things and record the video out, while hopefully still in parallel using a regular monitor. And it comes with the cables to power it and connect up the various video sources, and ready to go out of the box if it works. And I better keep all these cables together with the unit so I know what came with what, or else this is going to end up in one huge bin of cables that I think are 20 years old and I don't need, and I throw it away. So back in the bag for now. I'll have to test this out later. And the day would not be complete if we didn't have expansion board module, expansion board module. So there should be at least 2 things in here, and there are. And they look pretty beefy. So what is this? So I don't really recognize offhand what this might be. I thought, hey, is that another Arduino Uno? But I see USB blaster. That's starting to sound like a CPLD development environment. I know I ordered something similar months ago, so let's see. I will score both of these open, if I can, and get at them. If I can. The bag is just the right size, so I can't get at it. I see some of those traditional bent pins on some of these headers. Yeah, I better just peel this apart. I'm just going to snag things. I don't know if I bent those pins just now, but it won't be a big deal. Okay, I'll just lay that aside. I might as well take the other thing out as well, get everything ready to evaluate. So we have a USB mini looking cable which goes to this USB blaster Altera. And on this USB blaster's other end, it looks like we have a standard programming interface ribbon header and ribbon cable. And then the board itself with this bent pin. So I can't really read everything on the chip. The printing is kind of light. But this is an LC technology board with an Altera MAX II on it. So I wonder if the listing tells us more clearly what kind of CPLD this is, what kind of inside storage there is, how many gates or whatever, macro cells. So this board looks rather straightforward. I'm not sure what this push button does. There's not much labeling other than some reference designators for what look like decoupling capacitors on the bottom for the chip. Looks like a simple LDO regulator. I don't know what this does, and I'm going to have to provide my own power and figure out what the power source is. We have a couple of jumpers, some headers, and the programming interface. An oscillator. Is that 50 megahertz? Well, that's all there is to look at. Let's check the listing and see if there's more details. But in general, I got this and its programmer because I want to get back into FPGA or CPLD development just for fun. I have several eval boards that I've bought between 10 to 15 years ago. I might have used them a little bit, but they sat around. So as soon as I find them in all these boxes I have around me, I want to get back into it. And I thought it would be nice to have something fresh and clean to start with as well. So let's look it up and see what we have. The original listing ended, so this is the same seller, World Chips. So $10.59 US is currently the going rate for both the programmer interface and the development board combined. My original listing was about $1 less, and it was several months ago. So it is a CPLD development board, Altera MAX II EPM 240. It comes with a Byte Blaster interface for development. It runs at 50 megahertz. And this blaster cable, it can support a whole bunch of CPLDs and FPGAs. And the target device can be between 1 volt and 5.5 volts. So quickly looking on DigiKey, this is a 2.5 and 3.3 volt device. 240 logic elements, 192 macro cells, 80 IOs in a 100-pin package. So looking at some general datasheet info for the MAX II family, it looks like this device is on the bottom end of the logic inside of it, which is fine. It's just for playing around and developing at low cost. getting back into CPLDs and VHDL. This particular datasheet is August 2009, so 9 years old. It's not the most cutting-edge stuff that you can get, but just for playing around and learning on, perfectly fine. So that's not too bad. We have some stuff we ordered long ago, VGA to video adapter, and this Altera MAX II board. And we have some useful stuff, restocking, Flux and Capacitor Kit, some 74HC CMOS stuff, and some slider knobs that I need to now find pots for. So the quest for parts shall continue.